Welcome back to the morning rundown where we talk about the top stories of yesterday and over the weekend. Because today is Monday, we're going to talk about top stories and the business lessons that you can draw from those top stories. Now, before I begin, I do want to say thank you to my friends over at OnPay for this awesome, comfortable shirt that they hooked me up with. So thanks for the cool gear. Now, let's hop into today's story. Now, the first story that I want to talk about, it happens to be an interesting video that got over 3.4 million views in less than 24 hours. Now, this video was actually a person who is literally taking apart a brand new iPhone because what he wanted to find out is how much titanium is actually in the product. Now, in this video, he literally destroys the phone and he takes the phone completely apart. Now, some people may be thinking about this like, what the heck does that have to do with business? And I think a very important lesson that I learned in watching that video is that, you know what? There are a lot of people who are interested in very different things because Apple has promoted that they're using titanium in their phones. Now, what that tells me about Apple is Apple understands that, hey, you know what? Being able to talk about these little cool things that are within their product is driving attention and buzz where people are really excited about an iPhone because it now has titanium in it. They tend to perceive it to have a lot more value. So he wanted to take it apart to see how much titanium is actually in the phone. And it is a very interesting, video. Now, when you think about your own business and you think about, what it takes for you to deliver the product or the service that you deliver, now, a lot of companies are talking about like, hey, we're using more environment friendly processes, or hey, we're using recycled material, or we're doing all these different things because what they recognize is that some of their audience or some of their potential clients care about what goes into the process. Now, if you're building a business, maybe that's something for you to consider and for you to think about is what goes into the process, all that work you're doing behind the scenes. Maybe some of your potential customers care about it. And maybe if you started working that into your messaging, maybe it could connect well with your potential clients and they may be more interested in doing business with you. Now, one of those very clear examples when we started talking about how we have a process of using the golden age method of really helping people reach their potential as they become part of the company. When we started telling potential clients about how we're using, our leadership model within our company, there were more companies that wanted to do business with us because they liked the way we were approaching leadership within our company. And that is a lesson that a lot of business owners can take a note from because it could be something that helps you connect with your audience even more than ever before. Huge story that happened over the weekend is American football. Now, during this time of year, you're going to constantly hear about American football because it is just so much energy going around it. Big game this past weekend, and there was a lot of excitement around it. Now, unfortunately, Notre Dame did not actually win the game, and there was a very big business lesson that popped out of that because literally Ohio State won in the last final seconds of the game. Like they scored within the final 3 seconds of the game. And what that tells me is when you're building a business or when you're playing sports, whatever you're doing, is that, the game isn't over until it's over. To where when you're working through things and you're trying to get through deadlines, like even though it may seem like, hey, you're running against the clock, is you want to make sure that you are using your time wisely and not, rushing to making mistakes, but keeping your composure. Because I will say, in those final seconds of the game, Ohio State could have just given up and just been like, all right, the game is over. We're done. But they did a decent job of keeping their composure and saying, like, hey, we know there's only, 10 seconds left on the clock, but we're still going to execute and we're still going to manage our time and we're still going to keep our composure because, hey, we can still win and close this game out. And which, unfortunately for me, because I'm a Notre Dame fan, is that Ohio State did keep their composure long enough for them to pull it out within the last 3 seconds of the game. So as you're building your business, asking yourself like, hey, when you're running up against deadlines, are you losing your composure and missing the deadlines? Or are you keeping your composure and saying like, hey, we're going to keep working through this, especially if you have a team of people that you lead or that you manage. What are you doing to help your team keep their composure as you're working through whether it's tight deadlines or whether it's new processes? How do you keep your composure and still make progress to finish out strong? Now, the last top story that I want to talk about is the US dollar appears to be under more and more pressure. Now, historically, the US dollar has been seen as the global reserve currency. But as that starts to change, the power of the US dollar is getting a little bit weaker. Now, when you start thinking about, okay, how is the US dollar getting weaker going to impact, me, and how does it impact my, my small, my medium sized business? Well, one of the areas that it does impact is if you think about your supply chain. Let's say if you are buying products that are coming from a different country. Well, as the US dollar gets weaker, then that means that what you're buying from other countries may start to get a little bit more expensive. You may start to see the pricing go up. And let's say if you're a small business and you are hiring contractors that are located outside the US, well, one of the things to keep in mind is as the US dollar gets weaker, then all of the talent that you're hiring outside of the US may get a little bit more expensive. So when you start thinking about things like that, you can start to see why, hey, this, what seems like very big news that is only related to the major companies, it actually can have an impact on your small, your medium sized business when you start to understand more of the implications behind it. Well, that's all we have today for the morning rundown. We're talking, hey, trending videos on YouTube, trending topics across the news spectrum, and also what is the business lesson we can kind of learn and what can we start doing now when we look at what's happening in the news. Thanks for tuning in today's episode of the Morning Rundown.